Last week we spoke about Abraham making preparations for that covenant. But let's see what happened after that. And it's so easy to open ourselves up. Yes, it's not that difficult. If you really want to, it's not that difficult. It's only when you start to protect yourself that the soldier comes out and we actually chase everybody away. But if you really open yourself, there is things that's going to happen. It's really not that easy. But let's look at Genesis 15. What did Abraham do when he opened those animals and he laid them down? It says, let's go back. He says, and Abraham brought to God all these and cut them down the middle in the halves and lay each half opposite the others. But the birds did not divide. So the heifer, the she-goat, the ram, the turtle dove, and the pigeon were lying there. They were slaughtered. And then the birds of prey swooped down upon the carcasses. The moment you're going to open up yourself, everything is going to come and try to tear you apart, to take you away. But what did Abraham do? It says, Abraham drove them away. So that whole day, after he prepared those carcasses for the covenant to be confirmed, Abraham had to fight. Those birds of prey don't come in one. They come in swarms, and they came down. And Abraham said, no, the covenant with God is much more important than all these birds. Sometimes you have to be so focused to step into that covenant, to step into that victory, to step into that promise that God has given you, that you're going to have to say, I'm not going to listen to anything else. No matter all the swarms that's coming against me, I'm going to have one focus. And I want to have this covenant, this opening of myself. I will dedicate that to God. Yes, I'm going to have to take a stand. I'm going to have to say, this is what I want. And not be swayed by the wind. As in James 1, like a boat just going through the wind and let the wind just take me where it wants to. No, Abraham said, no. God said I must prepare these carcasses. And I'm going to take and I'm going to stand and I'm going to protect the carcasses. I'm going to protect the opening that I am willing to make with God. I am willing to say, God, I'm going to open myself to your fullness. And no matter what anybody else says, no matter what the world is bringing, no matter what bird of prey is coming in, I am standing on that knowing that you said, I've got a covenant with you. Abraham was willing to say, I'm going to stand. And I'm going to take that stand for. That is what Ephesians says. Stand and take your stand. We have to take a stand and say, this is what I want. And because Abraham says, but this is what I want. The following happened. When the sun was setting, so it was happening this whole day. Abraham was busy with these sacrifices. When the sun was setting, a deep sleep overcame Abraham, and a horror, a terror, a shuddering fear, and a great darkness assailed and oppressed him. The moment it was the end of day, now we must remember, the Jewish days was from sunset to sundown. That's from sunset to sunset. So their days starts at night. 6 o'clock at night, their day starts, and then it's through to the next day at 6 o'clock. So when it says when the sun was setting, so the old was past, the day of preparation was past, and when the sun was setting, when the end of the old was past, Abraham went into a sleep. And what happened? Something appeared in that new day, and the presence of God came down on him. So we have to be finished with the old. We have to say, God, I'm going to open up everything that is in the past, so that I can step in to this new day where it's not always that easy, but there's a new presence. And that is in that newness of day that he saw the light that came in. And God himself walked through the sacrifice. Have you stepped in to your new day? Or are you still struggling with the old, hiding everything? It's not through hiding that you will step into the new. It's by exposing the old. It's by exposing what has happened. Bring that into the light, that the new dawn will come, that the newness of day will happen, and there will be victory. It's the same with that happened with Jesus when he was on the cross. Night came and they've put him in the grave. And during that time in the grave, a change happened. Something different was coming forth. And when that stone was rolled away, it was a new day. It was a new beginning. God wants you to step into a new. We have to say, God, the old, change that. During that 3 days that Jesus was in the grave, his body was renewed. He still had the scars, but his body was renewed. Why? He opened up himself. And when he stepped through that opening, when the stone was taken out, there was a light. And everybody saw that. And everybody that was close by knew something had happened. That was the beginning of the new covenant. The fulfillment of the covenant with Abraham. Abraham said, I'll protect. But he never knew what was coming. So today, you're going to have to protect yourself. You're going to have to protect what God has given you. But that means you have to open up everything that the world has added and say, God, I'm laying down what the world has given. I'm laying down the old ways and I'm willing to step into the new. This was not where Abraham's name was changed. This was the covenant to say, Abraham, are you willing to give everything to me? Today, I'm asking you the same. Are you willing to give everything to Jesus Christ, the conqueror, the life, the fullness, the word that became flesh, the one that's in the bosom of the Father? As you give it, as you open it up and say, I'm willing to open everything up, you will step into that new covenant, and the fullness of that new covenant will step into you, and you will experience God in different ways, because there's so many ways that we can actually experience God. There's only one way to the Father, but there's many ways that we can experience Him. He is the source of life. Have you ever experienced the source of life? That means step into that covenant. Open yourself up and say, I'm not going to listen to the world anymore. I will fight against the world, the birds of prey. And let God lead you into that new fullness, as John on the island of Patmos experienced, where it says, and a door opened, and I heard the voice that said, come up. And he went up. It was not the door of death that opened up. John went in to heaven and came down and explained to us what it looks like in heaven. You can have the same experience. But that means you have to open up yourself, fight the birds of prey, and step in to that new fullness of a living God. I bless you with that fullness of a living God. I bless you with a new, can I call it new dimension of God? There's only one way, that's through Jesus Christ. But there's the moment you start to walk that way of faith, you will see the fullness of God, like John on the island of Patmos. May that be your portion. And I bless you with that in Jesus Christ's name. Shalom.